Pushing through the flag. The United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll start with roll call.
Steve Copeland. Mike Kusa.
Debbie Sherman. Nicole Levine McGrath.
Dick Tomporowski.
And any amendments to the agenda? I have one unless anybody has others. So I have a motion to add an executive session to discuss a personnel matter related to a leave of absence request. And I'd like to add that before number 6. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Okay, motion carries. And then we have approval of the minutes. Somebody want to make that motion?
I make a motion to approve the Board of Education minutes from 5/9/23.
Any discussion?
I have one amendment to make. In the section that deals with policy, I'd like to acknowledge that we had a first read for the school activity fund.
Anybody else? Any other? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Shelley? Motion carries. Okay, audience of citizens. So we're gonna open the floor up to the audience of citizens. We have on the agenda tonight. I know you guys all have a lot you want to talk about. So can we just maybe limit it to 5 minutes if you can, per person? So just when you come up, state your name so we can put it in the minutes. So whoever would like to come speak.
This is actually on.
Yeah.
My name is Susan Kondick. My son is a student that Dr. Miller publicly called out in his letter on Wednesday to the entire high school community, and then again to the entire district on Friday. In his letter to the high school staff, parents, and guardians, he stated, "The way this poem was read was intentionally made into a joke." In his district-wide newsletter, he stated that he felt a true low, that a student made a mockery while reading a melancholy poem, and that he felt compelled to echo those sentiments to our parents and staff in today's newsletter. What compelled Dr. Miller to feel the need to shame a student in a public forum? And what was he shaming him for? Dr. Miller's perceived and assumed intentional mockery? Did Dr. Miller even speak to my son and ask him what his intention was? The answer to that is no. If he had spoken to him, he might have learned that my son had no idea he was to read the poem. He would have learned that he was actually still in handcuffs and could not even hold the paper or the microphone, making it hard to see the words and judge how loud he was speaking. If he had spoken to him, he would have found out that if he was reading the poem, he realized it was a sad poem and tried to change his voice to put more emotion into it. If he had spoken to my son, he would have known that he did feel bad about how he read it, and he did not intentionally mean to disrespect the poem or the event. But Dr. Miller never spoke to him, never got his side of the story, and callously chose to make his opinion known, not just once, but twice, without any regard for my son. And where did this outrage come from? The poem was read on Monday. My son had no idea he had upset anyone until Wednesday, a full 48 hours later. If his actions were so egregious, why wasn't he spoken to on Monday? Why on Wednesday did I receive a phone call from the assistant principal to tell me my son was in her office because his poem reading was blowing up on social media and that he had upset the community so terribly that central office had to get involved? I was told that they were telling him that they had been directed to take away his senior trip, his senior prom, and quite possibly his graduation. One of the teachers who was also in the office told me that he had told my son he was worried about his lack of empathy. The assistant principal told me she had given my son 2 days to figure out how to make amends to an entire community. My son came home that day inconsolable. This could have gone tragically wrong, What if I had not been able to come home that day? What if he didn't have the love and support from his family? What if he had gotten home, decided he really was the horrible person he had been told he was, and decided to do something tragic? We all know our children's mental health is a serious concern these days, and this was how he was treated. Dr. Miller worries a child might cry if they have to color a Christmas tree at school or see a Santa image on a flyer. But he had no problem publicly shaming a student or asking his administrators to basically throw the book at him. Dr. Miller has since removed his comments from the OPS newsletter and sent an apology letter out. In his apology letter, he states that sometimes what we draft as a message comes across differently than what we intend. Is he asking for understanding and forgiveness because he didn't intentionally mean to hurt or embarrass anyone? Did he extend this same courtesy to my son? The answer, again, is no. So my question to the board, how long do you keep supporting these kinds of behavior? Are there not policies in place for protecting a student's privacy? Did Dr. Miller follow them? Do you approve of his handling of the situation? Dr. Miller will say he did not use names and it was all over social media already. Well, there was only one student reader that day, and I have yet to find proof of the alleged viral campaign. I'm really hoping that you find his actions abusive and start taking events like this seriously. You say that everything you do is in the best interest of the children. Please prove it, for this most certainly was not in the best interest of my son.
Anybody else?
Christine Bavone, 9 Macintosh Drive. First, as someone who has spoken out numerous times regarding the middle school climate and how vaping was a big issue, I learned today that there was an assembly on it. I checked the OMS newsletter and nothing was mentioned. While I'm glad this has finally been addressed, I am not sure why parents were not notified prior to this event. Speaking of events, the superintendent had no problem sharing a high school event district-wide. I personally had no idea that there was an issue at the Take a Stand event. I did see the shared school pictures on social media on Monday, and that was the end of it. I didn't know until I read the district newsletter on Friday that there was a problem. As I do know the players involved, I was not aware of what happened. This was dealt with privately, as it should have. I am shocked at what was shared externally with parents. I did send an email to Dr. Miller regarding this and received a response. There were other parents as well who sent emails, but the responses varied. Some received invitations to meet with him. Some got simple apologies. One response noted that he received kudos for his handling of the situation and shouldn't even have to apologize. So was he sorry or not? Instead of spending taxpayer dollars on hiring a human resources or curriculum consultant, the district should invest in a PR firm. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nobody else? Okay.
Christy Zawistowski, 103 Maple Tree Hill Road. It was brought to my attention today that there was a question on a high school English test that basically called people brainwashed imbeciles, morons. The question was basically anybody, well, I can read it. I watched in horror 2 years ago on January 6th, 2021, as a mob of brainwashed imbeciles blank the reputation of America and endangered democracy itself, so as to overturn an already decided election in favor of their egomaniacal candidate. We can never recover our long history of the peaceful transfer of power and the stability it stood for. Now we get looked down upon by the likes of Russia and China. Way to go, morons. So it was brought to my attention today that this was on an English test at the high school. It was also brought to my attention it was taken care of. The teacher was written up. in hopes that maybe they don't return next year because it will be an easy way to wash it away. My question to you all is, why are we not putting more focus on our curriculum? Why was this teacher allowed to stray from the curriculum and put such an outrageous question on one of his exams? What was done to this teacher? Publicly this week, we received an email regarding the child at the high school. Why did we not receive a public apology from this teacher, basically calling many members of this community morons? My fear is that this is happening more than we know, that these types of one-sided questions. I had the issue last year with my son in middle school. I called the teacher. I spoke with her directly. I let her know that if me or my son know her political stance, she's not properly doing her job. She apologized and we moved on. But to have this come up again, my concern here is the curriculum. Are we keeping a close enough eye? Dr. Miller seems to keep a very close eye on what goes on when it comes to Booster Club, fundraising, and everything else. Is he keeping a very close eye on our tests and what these teachers are teaching our children and putting on our tests and the message that they're portraying to them? Because it's very concerning to me. That's all I have.
Anybody else? Okay. We're gonna.
584 Chestnut Trail Road. I just wanted to come because I know I'm not going to be able to be here at the next meeting because of things happening at the high school. I just wanted to let you know that I see the high school kids excelling in many ways, and there might be diverse ways of people teaching. I don't see that, but I do see when students come into my room, I have students coming in my room that haven't even taken an art course because their schedule doesn't fit it in, but they come in during their own open period in my free period, and they're making some spectacular pieces of art. Between Miss Campbell and I, or Bethany Campbell and I, we leave our doors open and we listen to a lot of the students. A lot of the students seem to enjoy their time at Oxford High School. And I believe I hear a lot of things from the students. And yes, there's going to be conflict between some students and some teachers all the time. But overall, I think Oxford Public Schools are doing a great thing, because I hear it from, we just had a senior art show last night. I heard it from one of the grandparents that there's Oxford school system is a great school system. And she admires it. And she used to be she's a retired teacher from Shelton. So I understand when people have conflicts and everything, but I just want to let you guys know that our students are excelling in so many different ways. I get excited almost every single day at my job when I see the kids coming up with these unique ways to add their own twist to my projects. So I mean, I tell them what I would like to see in them and the techniques I would want them to use, but there's nothing's telling them that they can't go farther. And I believe that's in a lot of areas with writing. They have the cellar door going on up there tonight. They have the coffee house going up there tonight. And a lot of students work very hard to get to where they are. And as a matter of fact, I'm running out of here to go see the baseball game in Wolcott at the softball game because the girls were so excited about it. And Miss Campbell's from Watertown and I'm from Oxford. So she's rooting for Watertown because her daughter's on it, but I'm going to be right there with my Oxford gear on, harassing her all the way, and having a little bit of fun with the kids, and they can't wait to see us up there. So I just want to, with all the differences, and I know there's a lot of things going on and I listen to everyone. I just want you to know that the students are still excelling in so many ways in our system. And it keeps like a gleam in my eye and a smile on my face when I'm driving to school. And yes, when turmoil hits and different conflicts come up, I just hope that we can settle it in a fashionable way so our students still get the most out of our educational system. So that's it. And thank you.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, ma'am.
Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna go on to number 5. Go.
I'm Gina Rivera from 12 Pines Drive. I appreciate what that teacher just said, and I love what that teacher just said. But what she included in her speech was that she gives her students the tools for them to create. That's what a teacher should be doing, is teaching our kids how to think, not what to think.
One last time. Okay, we're gonna go on to number 5, goes and OMS end of the year reports. Who would like to go first? Mr. Hendry.
So you all have a copy of my report. I'm not going to read through this line by line. I've been asked to keep this to under 10 minutes. I do want to let you know that I've based the structure of this report off of the Great Oak Elementary School Improvement Plan, because that's where we put our concerted efforts this year. And I'll spend a little time kind of highlighting 5, 6 areas that we're most proud of for this year. My recommendations for next year, we all know that that's going to be underneath leadership to Dr. Miller and the new principal, but my recommendations are in the report. I'll highlight those as well. I'm not going to go page by page, data grid by data grid. So to start off, I just want to say thank you to the Board of Education Central Office for continuing to provide the necessary resources and support for working toward and attaining these goals. What I'd like to highlight, or actually talk about first, is goal number 1, which talks about students, school improvement plan for improving student performance. One of the things that I want to point out right up front is we continue to struggle with chronic absenteeism. Our number last year, we had 27% or 24 students, who were chronically absent, which means they were absent 10% of the time, or 18 absences by the end of the year. We are currently at 20 students, so it has not dropped dramatically. The one thing that I will say is this is last year and this year are the first times in my career that we've never met the goal of less than 5% of chronic absenteeism. A lot of it is, a perfect example of it today is things like the common cold and common illnesses are coming back, and people are being very sensitive to the fact that, do we come back to school with symptoms? How do we differentiate between some of these illnesses and COVID, et cetera? It's a challenge to get over this hump, but I'm very confident based on past experiences, 16 other years of being less than 5%, that we will get back there. When we look at academic growth and achievement, I just want to point out that we talked mid-year that GOES was recognized as a school of distinction, which means you need to be in the top 10% of elementary schools in the state in a particular category. We were a school of distinction in 4 out of the 5 possible categories. That was last year. What I hope you can glean from the data is that if you look at our growth and achievement results in reading, you look at the iReady results, we're already seeing preliminary results coming in from the SBAC. We are on par with or in better off as far as growth and mastery in reading than we were last year. So I'm just trying to connect some dots that I think that we're onto something with regard to establishing practices, curriculum, approaches to teaching and learning that is sustainable across time, across cohorts. And I'm anticipating that math is going to have a similar profile. And I wouldn't be surprised if you are sitting here next year talking about the fact that GOES, the Oxford Public Schools, once again will be recognized in those top 10% categories and receive some accolades as far as schools of distinction. So That's as much as I want to say about that. There's a lot of things in the report that I attribute that to, and you can read that for yourself. It goes kind of underneath a catchphrase of concerted effort equals desired results. And we certainly are making concerted efforts on a daily basis. And I'm very happy and very proud of our GOES community, all stakeholders, students, staff, parents, our support system with central office and the Board of Ed. I'm very proud of the work that we've done in order to get to where we're at. Not that there's not more room for improvement. I'm always a believer in continuous improvement, but at least we are seeing some of the successes we were hoping to. Goal number 2 talks about things like early intervention services and how we schedule those types of things. Oftentimes we think about what are the most important parts about education. And I always say, class size is important. But I also want to emphasize that the support services in early intervention and special education and related services are an equal part to making sure that we're providing students with the access to learning that they need. And I want to balance that with the fact that we're also making concerted efforts with regard to enrichment programs. We're providing at grade level and above grade level experiences and opportunities for those kids. And it's really trying to take the bell curve of our students and trying to make sure that we're providing equal access to learning for all of those students. Goal number 3, we're making a concerted effort with regard to feedback to teachers, whether that's through the teacher evaluation system or whether that's through what we're calling instructional walkthroughs, where teachers are going into other teachers' classrooms, having conversations about the positive and productive things that they're seeing there, taking it back to their classrooms and getting a little bit more consistency with regard to approaches to teaching and learning. And we're focusing that in particular areas depending upon what the identified needs are. So I'll give you an example. Next year, Science or Reading, new reading program, I could see that being an area of focus with regard to some of these instructional walkthroughs. Communication is important. We utilize the Hawk Talk and contribute to the OPS e-news on a weekly basis. There's multiple other forms of communication that happen throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the school year as well. And goal number 6, sorry. We have firmly established Ruler and our PBIS program to support emotional learning and emotional needs for students and behavioral needs. I have a recommendation for next year. There's a program called Restorative Practices, which focuses on the social elements of student learning and existence and learning how to get along. So I would encourage the district to consider a combination of social, emotional, and behavioral types of approaches in order to address those needs. So in addition to that, for next year, we know we're going to have a new reading program that needs to be a focus. We need to give that a lot of time and attention. We'll be in year 3 of a Lusted math program. Our results came back after year 1 on that. When you look at SBAC and iReady, very positive. We had 2 School of Distinctions based upon math last year. That's phenomenal for a first year implementation. I anticipate the same thing for this year. And again, I just think we need to continue to move forward with regard to that implementation. Continuing the SRBI and data team processes in order to make sure we're meeting the needs of all kids. We implemented a support services model this year so that we could be as efficient and as effective as possible with providing special ed early intervention services. This was year 1. It was embraced by staff. When we came back to do the placement process or start the placement process this year, we said all that hard work that we put in last spring in order to develop the schedule for this year paid off in dividends, because figuring out how to provide most effective and efficient services was very easy. Continue enrichment, continue to maximize feedback to teachers. I already mentioned a combination of PBIS, rule, and restorative practices. And one thing that always sits in the backseat sometimes is, students come to school sometimes to sit in the desk and read the book and write on the piece of paper and do the math problem. A lot of kids are connected to school for a lot of other reasons. So providing opportunities for students in the areas of things like student council, town meeting jobs, the arts, newspaper club, memory book club, partnering with Park and Rec for after-school activities. Those things are the things that many students are drawn to as their number one choice of why I want to get up and go to school. But they're also that complementary, well-rounded approach to education that we are providing and should continue to provide and continue to expand. So the last one I would just put in there is that one of the things that I've enjoyed my time at Center School and at GOES is that we've always subscribed to a culture of what I call collective efficacy, which means we're all on the same page working towards common goals. And the goal is one, the paths are many, and we figure that out. And we use a collaborative approach and we use a growth mindset in order to achieve that culture of continuous improvement. So that's something that you don't find it. You can't go out and buy it. You can't find it on a shelf in a store someplace. It's something that has to be developed over time. And I've been very appreciative to be part of that. And I just want to see that continue.
Thank you. And
Did I
thank
meet
you
my
for
10
your-
minutes?
Anybody have any questions?
Well, it is encouraging to see the growth of the students. So congratulations on that. I do have a question though. So when I looked at the whole school results, and I see that in reading, in reading, you do have a lot of kids at their grade level. I think that's great, and I do see the numbers growing up. One concern that we had in both math and reading, but I'm looking at reading right now, is that we still have 28% of the kids that are 1 to 3 or more grade levels below. So the first part of the question is, when you look at the results and you look at the curriculum and the pacing models and so forth, pacing guides, the materials that the kids are being assessed on, who does the, or was an alignment done between the curriculum, basic guides, et cetera, and what's been taught at that point in time versus what they're being tested on? Is that a piece of this, or is it just that we still have that really almost a third of the kids still really struggling?
Yeah, a couple of things. I know that I'll give you the conversation to date and then, you know, where it's heading. So when we've looked at early intervention services in reading and math up to now, we have to determine, do students need grade level support? Meaning this is what's happening in the classroom at the grade level. This is the content. And if we give them support, can we help them achieve to a higher level? The other question becomes, do students have such significant deficits that we need to give them instruction multiple grade levels below? So it's a combination of those things with regard to, yes, are we aligning with curriculum and the scope and sequence, et cetera, and supporting that? Or do we need to go back and reteach or continue to teach skill deficits that might have been taught in 2 or 3 grade levels lower than that? I know that when we're looking at the SOR, which I have not been wholly involved with, one of the conversations is how do we, when they looked at that program, is what types of intervention services do they have built into that program? And then what types of intervention services can support that program with its scope and sequence, et cetera. So it's at the forefront of the conversation is what I would say.
We need by SOR is the science of reading, and that's the new state initiative and the program that we're talking about here.
I just wondered specifically if the results were at all skewed, and I don't know the answer myself with looking at that line. Is that something that you were able to do to look at that?
Because we just received some of these results and some of these results are not complete yet. We haven't gotten that far in the analysis and looking at it, but it's definitely an area that we're going to explore.
Anybody else? Steve?
Mentioned the recommendation to store it as practice. It's like,
Yeah, so something happens on the playground between 2 students, and traditional approaches, who did what wrong, both wrong, punishment, done, Restorative practices takes it to another level. It says, okay, something happened that was wrong here. What was the cause? How could it have been handled better? There's kind of a counseling approach with that, where students can discuss their differences and see if they can't learn from that through a less punitive approach.
Is that something that you are doing that you haven't done in the past, or is that
I'm
something?
sorry, Deb, I can't hear.
Is that something that we're not doing or something that you recommend that we do?
But I think we're doing it
Okay.
across the board, but it's informal. There's not common language, there's not common expectations. Some teachers do it more than others, and I just think if we can develop some consistency there, that would be a good thing.
It's a formal approach to looking at how to approach student discipline and consequences and get students back to a level where they are communicating and working collaboratively together again in a positive, healthy way. Ellen, who's our assistant principal at Oxford Middle School, is a certified trainer in restorative practices, and we're looking at potentially rolling it out next year in a formal way.
Can we defer? There you go.
So restorative practices basically engages students in work with them instead of doing things to or for them, right? So they're part of the process. There's like a series of portable questions that you ask each student in the setting. I do it with our students at the middle school level if they're willing to engage in the conversation. And so basically you get to the end question, which is what do you need to move on and what do you need to do to make this right? And then the students can come to a formal agreement about expectations for one another as a starting point to be able to move forward. So it's a twist on how we address things with students, and I think they feel more engaged in the process and that they're heard. And ultimately that will reduce the number of repetitive behaviors that we see in classrooms. Yeah, and it is, I mean, I find it to be pretty effective with students. And you can bring in like, there's all different levels of informal conferencing to formal conferencing where you have families come in and meet together as large groups, get everyone to be willing to be active participants. But there's all different levels of it.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I'm just going to go back. I just want to clarify in my mind. There was a program of pinning kids or something like that. You know, when they did something wrong and writing their name on it. Has that been disbanded?
That was not a practice that goes. That's all I can say.
That's good put. That's not.
That was not something that's taking place at a school.
But it is happening.
It was earlier that we had stopped that practice.
Okay, because I look at things as, you know, I think I use the analogy today, education is like a 3-stage rocket. Okay, we got elementary school, stage, middle school, high school. And all those pieces in the first stage have to go together with the next stage. So if we're doing something that's, to I think, very poor, really singling somebody out by labeling them with a pin, stars have been used in the past, all kinds of different things to label somebody. So if that's happening, that's got to cease, because I don't think that's a form of good SEL. So we have to get on teaching the elements of elementary school so that you get a good product. And so I guess I welcome your behavior thing. What, just generally, and then I'll get off. What kind of behavior problems do you have? Is it disruptive class? What are the things that you have that they can focus on in the classroom?
Who are you? Are you asking Heath?
No, I'm asking.
Ellen?
Yeah, that one. I'm sorry.
Well, can we have Ellen?
They're right up
do that-
next.
do that?
They're
They're what?
middle class coming right up.
Could they do that during their piece?
Okay.
And what you're talking about with was the clip up, clip down?
Yeah.
It wasn't pinning a student, it was a clip up, clip down on a board
At a teacher's desk.
about
Right.
behaviors, and
And
that's,
they do it quicker.
yeah, I've never,
They're still doing it.
okay.
So we've kind of moved on from one. Thank you.
Anybody else for Mr. Hendershot?
As this is Mr. Hendershot's final official presentation to the Board of Education, I would like to thank Mr. Hendershot for his years of service to the Oxford Public Schools and congratulate him on his retirement. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I was just gonna say the same
Just a
thing.
couple of quick things. 33 years, 10 as a teacher, 23 as an administrator, 19 of those as an administrator in Oxford. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time here. I wouldn't have spent 19 years if I wasn't proud of the work that we've done during those 19 years. I remember showing up here with that being a gravel driveway. I remember Corey walking, the high school wasn't built yet. So I've seen a lot of progress in this town, and sometimes we think the progress isn't fast enough, and it may not be fast enough, but it is being made. And I'm happy to be part of that, and I'm actually a resident of Oxford now, so I'm looking forward to the continued progress, and I'm very vested in the work that the school system does. So, thank you.
So on behalf of the board, I just want to say thank you, and we wish you the best and all the best.
Okay, I'll see you at the restaurants or down at Market 32.
Yeah. Okay, OMS.
Hi, everyone. I hope you had a chance to enjoy the link to the spring edition of the school newspaper that was at the beginning of my end of year update. I think it does a nice job showcasing all of the activities and fun that we do try to have in middle school. So, you know, I'm going to talk about and was asked to talk about, not to go over the whole report as you had it and you've read it and you've digested it, just really to talk about what we're most proud of, what our next steps are, and the challenges that we're facing. So I think one of the things that we're really proud of this year is that we worked in collaboration with the high school, with the Board of Education, with the curriculum subcommittee to create a new schedule for next year. And, you know, I think we're really proud of the fact that it will maximize student growth and achievement. It'll give more opportunities for more students to access unified arts. It'll give more time for all students to access a WIT block. It'll give time for teachers to have built-in meetings to really hone in on common assessments and pacing and their formative and end of unit assessments. So I think that I'm excited for the possibilities of what that will bring. I'm also really proud of our concerted effort, you know, as Heath calls it, that's one of his Heathisms, but our concerted effort at community events. So from our first career day to the full musical at the high school, back on this big, beautiful production that happened, ongoing collaboration with Quaker Farms students, the younger students, our Honor Society kids went over there, our student council students, our 8th graders, that great community partnership that was built between older students and younger students, new clubs that we started. Our art club had an overwhelming 60 students in it. We had to break it up into a 6th grade art club and then a 7th and 8th grade art club. We started an investment club. We had intramural sports this year, and we're not done yet. We have, you know, thanks to the PTO, we have a better than ever, we're hoping, field day on next Friday, which should be a great community event. We have an outside vendor coming in, and they're going to have a combination of physical and like puzzles with the students, almost like Survivor, if you're a fan and you've ever seen the show, which I am. And so we're looking forward to that. And, you know, bringing back traditions or continuing traditions and starting new traditions. So we have our 8th grade semi-formal, we have lots of field trips happening, lots of grade level bonding. And then we're going to have a promotion breakfast that I heard happened in the past, and we're bringing that back. So we're really, and I know, and I acknowledge that one of our challenges still is culture and climate, but in next year, we want to keep working on that. But I am proud of the efforts that we have made in that area. And then one of the last things, I'm proud of lots of things, but I'm also proud of the iReady growth that you'll see in both reading and math from the fall to the spring. You can read our overall growth and our growth in areas. Do we still have a ways to go? Yes, but I'm proud of, this being my second year at the middle school, from last year to this year, the growth that we have made. Just like Keith talked about, we do have a challenge with chronic absenteeism, and it continues to be a challenge. And ours is a little bit different. There's some school avoidance issues. There's very individual and unique family situations, and we're trying really hard to work within that, but that's something that's going to carry over into next year, and we're going to continue to work on how do we work with those individual circumstances. And then there are student needs, there's student mental health needs, and there are student behavior needs, and we do acknowledge that, and we want to continue next year working with whole school initiatives in terms of promoting how words impact each other, and how we can really work together and continue to work together as a community. We have a grant-funded social worker that began, and it's been a great, she's been a great sounding board, because our current social worker is amazing, but she's got a lot of work that she needs to do currently with students. And this grant-funded social worker is able to sort of see the bigger picture and help us with programming for next year. And she has done that. And we're looking at strategic dates where we can get parental support in some of these programs as well, because without the support of the parents, who have been wonderful, a lot of this doesn't happen, right? Because we do need to have a partnership together. So, some of our next steps next year that I talked about already, we really want to maximize the new schedule and the opportunities for those electives. We want to continue to work on attendance, and we want to continue to work on whole school programming. An initiative that's near and dear to my heart, having been a former English teacher for 16 years, is our literacy initiatives. I was able to start a book club with students this year, and I met them every Tuesday at lunch, and I looked forward to that every week. We read Nutmeg award-winning books, and the students were so fabulous. And when I met with them in the last meeting, I said to them, do you think this is something I should continue? And they said, yes. And I said, well, what could I do different? We need to read more. We need to set stricter deadlines, Mrs. Olette. We need to have more chapters each week. And I'm really proud of that aspect of building that culture of literacy. And as we reread books, we added more students on to the group. So, and with the 0.5 library media specialist, I'm excited for that opportunity to continue to collaborate with someone who literacy is their main focus. So I don't know if you have questions for me.
Shelley? And you'll know because I asked you and you. So again, I'm just reading that I am very encouraged by the growth that the kids have made, and I've been reading. But when I look at the overall, just the overall school, I know it's different grade to grade, but it's concerning that 39% of the kids are still reading 1, 2, 3 or more grade levels below, according to the iReady results. So the same kind of question is like a two-parter, but what did you think when you looked at the alignment between what the kids have already been taught and the kinds of things they're asked about and tested on the iReady test. And then, you know, I know you've talked a lot about what you want to do in the future, but based on your analysis of that, what in particular specifically?
So we still have a few kids that have to finish up iReady. So the results, just like Heath's, are preliminary, but they're basically where they are. And what I found in reading is that the areas of informational text and the area of vocabulary is where our students seem to show the most need to grow. Informational text, if they don't see relevance to what they're reading, if the topic isn't something they're interested in, it becomes harder for them. And we know as adults that happens when we're not reading something we're interested in. And when you talk about some tier 3 vocabulary, that the way you become a better reader is if you read. The way you amass a vocabulary is if you read. And so that's why that goal of building this culture of literacy is so important, because if we continue to have students continue to read and read more and be more prolific in their reading, they will increase their vocabulary. I just met with our SRBI interventionist for reading, and we talked about end of year. And those students do continue to have skill deficit, they are growing. And what she told me is she's encouraged by the growth that they're making. So they may be a couple of grade levels behind, but they're growing, they're showing big gains in their growth. And so what I'm hoping is that if we continue to work and keep strengthening our SRBI program and our tiered intervention and our work in WIT with tier 1 intervention, that we can keep closing that gap for those students.
But if I was to take what town that I ready,
Mm-hmm.
and at this point in time, you have to, all right, start off fall, and they're not expected to know the grade, their throw was lower, it's, you know, it's basically winter, and finally spring and cold that they're here in the year almost. A lot of them are at that grade level better.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to pull other towns, or you don't have the data, or the state, like, would we see that, you know, 38% of our other towns' kids are 1 to 3 grade level behind?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't have data, I don't have access. It's not like SBAC data when you go on and you can see, and it's whatever the districts that have purchased iReady. I mean, I think it's something we can look into. My own child's district, I have a good relationship with the principal. I could ask that district just for like a little cohort comparison there. And I could, I have a couple connections with some districts. I belong to a principals group. I can ask that question. I haven't asked it yet. But there are variables. We're 408 kids. They might be 650 kids. They might be, 800. There's a lot of variables, but there might be some way for us to scratch the surface of that.
For me, it's just the analysis of, all right, find some other town, whatever it is, the education.
Mm-hmm.
Other areas for Excel. And if you have a secondary or tertiary question, why is that? Right? So you get into, is it a curriculum issue? Is it a teacher issue? Right? Is it, so I'm always looking for that nugget that says, oh, we found a best practice or two in other town where 80% are at grade level or higher.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing they noticed that broke their chains of growth was 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
But
Yeah.
our little silo, and it's hard to reach out. So to me, the data is a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Open dialogue, try to find that best practice, that nugget.
Yeah. And, I think if I had the panacea for it, I could bottle it in. So, but I think that is a good, and that's why I really enjoy the principals group that I'm a part of, because we do what you're saying, not necessarily with the analysis of iReady, but we take problems of practice, and it's varied districts across the state. And we talk about how are you handling this? How are you working on this? What is your best practice that works? And I have been able to pick up little nuggets, as you call them, for our school. And actually, I've been able to share little nuggets with other school districts, and they've emailed and said, oh, wow, this was a really great thing that you had suggested. So,
And we can have a conversation with our already representative to see if she can share us with that data to see if we can make a comparison.
Okay. Oh, and this is starting. Accelerator.
Anybody else? Vic, do you want to get the answer to your question?
No.
Anybody else? No, we're good? Okay,
thank you.
thank you, Sylvia. And we are on.
I have it.
Okay,
Motion to enter executive session to discuss leave of absence request. Yeah, that's all.
and invite in Dr. Miller.
We're going to invite Dr. Miller into that session.
Shelley, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Staying? Okay, we're in executive session.
7:21.
So do you want us to go out of this into the conference
We
room?
can go into the conference room.
The board like to make a motion to approve the leave of absence request?
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Against, opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for your indulgence while we did that. Number 6 is the report of the superintendent. Dr. Miller?
Good evening. I'll be rather quick. This is the season of what I'd like to call recognitions and celebrations. Last Wednesday, we had a beautiful ceremony at Oxford High School for the award ceremony and scholarships for the high school seniors. It was a wonderful ceremony that high school administration and our guidance counselors put together. This past previous weekend, we had high school students that attended a music festival in New Jersey, and they won several awards there. And then actually this past weekend, we had, I think it was 7 or 8 students that were invited to WestCon to a honors music celebration. And they, music program is rather small. We have a smaller high school, so they're used to singing in a very small choir. This gave our students an opportunity to perform with large groups of students, which is a very different type of experience. They got there in the morning, they practiced all morning, all afternoon, and they performed 4 songs to the public in the afternoon. It was a beautiful performance they did. And then tomorrow night, we have our Math Honor Society induction at the high school. And then on Thursday evening is the National Honor Society induction, also at Oxford High School. We are underway with graduation planning. There is a preliminary meeting with our chief operations officer and the high school administration, walking the field and take a look at what needs to be done for June 12th. Once again, the rain date is the 13th. And if it looks like both days are going to be rainy, we'll be planning for an indoor graduation with most likely in the auditorium with a live feed into the gym. Our hope is that we're not having any rain. The last few years it's been beautiful outside, and we won't need to do that. This Saturday is prom, and our high school juniors and seniors are looking forward to that greatly. That's going to be in Danbury this year. Last year was in New Haven. It kind of flipped back and forth between the 2 different areas. And then yesterday was field day at Quaker Farms, and thankful to our parents and our teachers, the PTO, for putting on a great fun set of activities for our students all day long. We had a great time when they were out there. That's my report. Thank you.
Report of the chair or designee, that's me, and I have nothing more. So, subcommittee reports, facilities. Joe's not here. There was supposed to be a meeting tonight and it was postponed.
Yes. They postponed. Joe was actually at a ceremony for his son. I guess he was being recognized for his baseball efforts. I think I don't have a date of when the next facility subcommittee is going to be meeting, but it might be next week.
And then I think it's curriculum next, right? Yep, that's me. We met for 2 hours, 2.5 hours yesterday. We were given the K-5 curriculum pilot completed by the Quaker Farms and Go staff, and I would really like to thank them for the time that they put in. I'd like to thank the staff that was there last night at our meeting that helped answer our numerous questions. But the recommendation from the committee after all of their review and their pilots was to go with the HMH into reading program. And it's a 5-year program. All the materials and the implementation with the professional development is a 5-year plan, and the cost is $251,417.29. We $251,417.29. This was the program that the teachers and this felt worked the best. It gives them some phonetic. Let me get my notes out because I'm going to remember it. Anyway, there was some phonetic issues, that were brought in. They can do the phonetics. Is that what it was? Phonetics, foundations. They can continue that, working with that program and with this new, reading program. So this was the recommendation, and we need to, there's some grant money, I believe, Dr. Miller, that we were gonna use.
The state of Connecticut has awarded based upon student population, a set of funds that came out of federal ESSER and ARPA funds. They have provided Oxford $54,000 for year one, 54,000 for year two. It is a reimbursement type grant. We can use it for the K-5 reading program that we're recommending tonight. So that would give us $108,000 that can go towards the investment of the new reading program.
Anybody else that was on the committee have anything they want to say about it?
Just a state-driven process to get all the current frameworks that we were getting years ago that quite honestly don't work that great. Getting back to more of a traditional approach to reading like many of us with. Teachers went through, I think, 6 programs, talking about like 5 or 6.
The state of Connecticut require that each district adopt one of 6 programs. They gave districts an option initially of either applying for a waiver which had extremely strict guidelines, and they were not too sure at the time what that rubric would look like. In fact, the district that have applied the state has not actually begun to look at those waivers yet. Midway through the process, the state said, if you want to adopt, but you're not ready to do so next year, we'll give you a 1-year extension to do that. In this case, our teachers, K-5, we piloted 3 different programs for approximately 5 weeks. Each grade, except for one grade, was able to pilot all 3 programs. One teacher did each of the 3, and then there's a control group in each grade level. And following that pilot, the teachers did a analysis of the data. This was very much teacher driven. Ms. Breganowski, Dr. Breganowski did the facilitation of the debrief and analysis with the teachers. But this process from the decision of which of the 6 programs to pilot through the pilot and then the analysis of the data, it was driven by what the teachers wanted to do in the process, and really their voice was heard in the selection itself.
One thing that we know there was, this program a lot of students had. One thing I liked about when I was here as a teacher was the connectivity foundation. We have some value and we enjoy working with that program, but just the sheer excitement, enthusiasm for this program. Wow, and now we're finally getting tools that are going to help us speak more quickly. So that was promising from that pilot. So just some additional information.
It was nice to see.
Yeah.
It was nice to see people excited about the program coming in and that they were really part of the entire process. So.
Yeah, you get great programs and you're gonna do this and you're gonna pick one, but it's almost like a mandate. This time it's for the feeling of state change is mandate for into an opportunity.
Right, and when you take a look at, we had the conversation earlier about where we are with reading, and we take a look at the data for SBAC, take a look at the data for iReady for both at the elementary school level and at the middle school level. When you see those dips there and where students are struggling in reading, our current program has gaps. And I'm recommending that we move forward with the program as soon as possible, because every year that we wait, we're missing an opportunity. And these students are falling further behind. And if we look at where students are struggling at middle school and high school level, that's because those core foundational skills were missed at the elementary school level. And if we can adopt this program, we're going to be strengthening tier 1 instruction, which will theoretically have a upside in lowering the students that will need to qualify for SRBI services, potentially special education services, and provide, not necessarily in 2 months from now, but it's going to provide long-term benefit to our students. We're going to see more positive results at the middle school and high school level. The other piece to this is that the HMH program does have a 6-12 component, which we do want to look at next year, which means that we might be in a position a year from now to be recommending, after we do some piloting, of implementation of 6 through 12 ELA in HMH, which would give us a K-12 program. So there's an alignment there across the board from kindergarten through 12th grade in English language arts.
Simple.
Right. The plan would be to implement the program as it is. There'd be heavy professional learning for our teachers from day one, with embedded professional learning as the years progresses. That would be part of the package that we get from the company. The plan would be for the teachers next summer to come together, a group of teachers to analyze the work that was done during the year and then string together and actually write the curriculum that takes the core elements from the program that we like and then implement it all next year. And as that implementation is taking place, having conversations with our teachers, what's working, what's not working, where are we seeing struggles, where are we seeing positive outcomes from these units, and what do we need to change not only for the upcoming units, but for the units that we just completed, so that next year when we do those units, that they're stronger based upon what we know works and what we know doesn't work from what we just taught our students.
So year one would be implementation, year two would be the curriculum writing.
Correct. And curriculum writing with revision so that year three it's even stronger.
Anybody on board? Do we need to do a motion on that?
I don't think so. The curriculum committee approved the moving forward with it last night.
So the other thing we talked about, we've been struggling with trying to get a scope and sequence, a scope of work for proposed curriculum work. So we have a timeline right now. We're still going to work on trying to backfill for places that we can use our current curriculum and places where we need to rewrite curriculum. And hopefully, one of the things that we heard last night is that we don't really have a great binder or index for our curriculum. So one of the things is we've looked at other districts. One of the districts was Madison. We've looked at Newtown, we've looked at Monroe, we've looked at other towns that are doing very well. So we are going to work on working with the teachers and the administrators to try and get what we envision as far as the curriculum work kind of put into the right index that we want. So the staff has it, has all the standards listed, so everybody knows what we're looking for. So we have a lot of work to do. We also need to do a lot in training for understanding by design, if that's the process that we're going to use for our curriculum writing. So that's one of the other things that we're working on. So we have a lot to do. We have a plan that finally kind of breaks down each grade level, each content area. So I think that we meet again on June 5th and we continue to work on this timeline and try and see if we can we've talked about having a consultant come in and work on the curriculum, but we would really like to include our staff in that process. I think it's really important that they are included in it. But that's where we are right now. We have gaps and we are very mindful of that. As a committee, we have a plan. We will continue to move forward with that plan. The other thing that we talked about were the summer packets for Great Oak and Quaker Farms. We got the reading list. And I think that was pretty much the high points of what we talked about yesterday. It was a long discussion on the program. So, and then anybody have any questions? Nope. And then on to policy. Nicole?
So tonight we have a second read regarding school activity funds. I went over this with you guys at the last meeting. The big takeaway from this is that we are trying to make sure it's recognized that the money stays in the name of the schools and that any money that's collected goes to the assigned administrator for their safekeeping at the close of each business day. And we're also looking to the future in the hopes that when we do future fundraisers, that we can use platforms such as My School Bucks for an online payment platform, so we don't have to collect any cash. So does anybody have any questions regarding the fundraiser policy, school activity funds policy? So hearing none, I would do a motion to approve the school activity funds policy as written.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Finance, insurance and personnel, Mike?
Okay. We just had our finance subcommittee meeting today. We went through the May budget. We looked at the retirement incentive package. I don't think it's official, the numbers, but we have a number of paras and teachers who are looking to take the retirement incentive package. We're very happy that they could participate in it and gain some value. We can't do it every year, but when it is appropriate and when there is funds in the current year budget, we like to make the offer and see if we can help parents, or pardon me, the paras and teachers. The status of central office move is moving forward at this time. Purchase orders are available and we're working on timing with Dr. Miller and the facility subcommittee. That'll be a topic for the next facilities meeting. For the budget update for 22-23, we have a preliminary number. Is it okay to share at this time? We have a preliminary number of 700,000 surplus for the 22-23 budget. This was generated from salary savings. When teachers leave, if we're able to replace them with a younger teacher or para, as well as insurance savings, we were able to generate funds in the amount of around 700,000. Now, anything can happen between now and the end of June, but that's the number we're looking at.
That was insurance as well,
Yeah, and
because we changed the insurance program.
yes.
The bulk of the funds came from the change in insurance carrier at the beginning of the year. That was a major effort that we took and we saw huge gains from doing so. And that was not planned for during the budget season last year. That came about because the increases from the state were so high. We went through and we took a long look, took about a 3.5 to 4 month process. And we ended up changing carriers that really benefit us for this year and for next year.
And that insurance change was approved by all the bargaining units because it lowered their expense on insurance and it was a win across the board.
That's correct. And it maxed out our increase percentage for next year at no higher than an 8.5%. Right now, we're an 8.4% increase for next year.
And for our stewardship in trying to, set aside money for unexpected special education costs that could occur for next year, I believe we're sending a message over to the Board of Finance to see if we can utilize carryover fund for around $150,000. Support that. We don't know where it stands on that or it will be allowed, but it's in the town charter to allow a carryover of 1 to 2%. This is much lower than 2% of our budget, but it's something that we know that the expense is going to hit us next year. We know there are students that are in the pipeline that are just not approved at this time, but they are working towards getting additional services. And we're trying to set money aside for it. But I do have at this time, with our approved budget, we have some budget cuts from the future operating budget. We were cut, I believe it was 705,000 and change that we needed to account for in our upcoming operational budget. So at this time, we have one proposed third grade new teacher that we're reducing, one proposed computer science new teacher that we're reducing from the budget. We've lowered our utility expenses. And at this time, we're reducing the number of full-time para FTEs by 10. And that's the update.
Anybody have any questions? No? Okay.
Let me just state something.
Yeah.
Position. So the number arrived in analysis by our special education department based upon the actual services that our students need, based upon their individual IEPs for next year, and based upon the number of paraprofessionals that would be needed to service those needs per those IEPs. So it's based upon a thorough analysis by our administrators in special education on what those needs are and how those students could be grouped together so that all the needs could continue to be met for all those students across the board K-12.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, liaison report, the only thing I have is PTO meeting is on the 25th. Anybody, I don't think there's any other. Okay, anybody else have anything? No. So motion to adjourn at 8:10. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 8:10.